Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. The Outdoor Adventure Series celebrates individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. Our guest today is Keith Caceres. Keith is an astronomy enthusiast and a member at the Las Vegas Astronomical Society. Keith, welcome to the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast.
Thank you for having me, Howard.
Fantastic. Now, for my listeners, you're probably wondering, why did we invite Keith onto the podcast? Well, obviously, astronomy, outdoors, that's a match. By the way, you'll see this video. He's wearing a nice NASA shirt. It's got the logo going, but there's this very special event that took place over the last couple of weeks. And I thought, I need to know more about this. And so the first guy I thought about was Keith. And so again, Keith, welcome to the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. I would imagine you're a pretty popular guy these days, or you and your fellow Las Vegas Astronomical Society members are pretty popular because of the James Webb Space Telescope.
Yeah, there's been a lot of interest. It's been a long time coming, and it's just unbelievable. So exciting to see it finally out there operating and bringing down new science.
That is fantastic. Now, definitely we are going to get into it to hear more about it. And just want to have you share about this love of astronomy. But tell us a little bit about your background and how you actually got involved or introduced to astronomy.
Well, I've always been interested in space and physics, and especially astrophysics. And I had actually even considered going into astrophysics, but instead I went into software development. But back in 2012, my wife and I were watching the news, and Kevin Jennison was talking about there's going to be an annular eclipse. And to see it properly, you'd have to go 2 hours north of Las Vegas. And so we decided, hey, why don't we go up to Cathedral Gorge State Park and go up there for the weekend and check out this eclipse. And when I went up there, the Las Vegas Astronomical Society was up there, and I was just blown away by both the night before I got to see Saturn and star clusters and nebula and some really big telescopes. And then the day of the eclipse, the fellow that I consider my mentor and our former president, Rob Lambert, was out there, and his setup was so cool. He had this Astro video camera pulling down live video of the sun and the eclipse going on, and he was supplying that to the news. It's like, wow, I want to do that. I kind of put it away for a while, and then my older brother, he got me a really nice birthday present one time. He got me a starter telescope just like a year later. He knew that I was really interested in astronomy, and that was finally like that's what got me going. Like, I was like, okay, now I have to take a deep dive and learn all about this astronomical equipment and telescopes and figure out how to do this kind of thing. And that was really the impetus where I joined the club and started volunteering at events. And Rob had gotten me towards organizing events. So I've been the organizer of the monthly events for probably almost 7 years now. Okay. And I've been with the club for almost 9 years.
Oh, wow. Now, I'm finding it somewhat hard to believe that you only just got into this in 2012. So that's 10 years ago. We're not going to guess each other's age. However, I'm making the assumption that you've always been interested in astronomy, but really just never acted on it.
Pretty much. As far as the science part, I've always been interested in it. The only part I didn't know was the equipment part of it.
Okay.
And believe me, there's quite a bit to learn to do the near real-time astrophotography stuff that I've gotten into, but not quite. It's a lot easier to get into just visual observing with eyepieces and to get a simple like Dobsonian telescope, which is what we typically recommend to beginners that are just getting into it visually.
Okay. But it's funny, when I moved to Las Vegas, I started to research about going out to the desert, and I've been a longtime photographer. And so my interest was astrophotography.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, Cathedral Gorge, for our listeners, is a fantastic state park that, when you're in Las Vegas, you need to get in the car and drive 2 hours, 2.5 hours, And if you can even spend the night, I know there's some hotels up near that
Yeah.
area, but
Yeah.
gorgeous place. And so back in 2012, you made the trip. And how did you begin to your involvement in the club? Did you just kind of go to the monthly meetings and just kind of talk to people, see what their equipment is like and pluses, minuses?
There's that. And like I said, our former president, Bob, I look at as kind of my mentor. I asked him
Sure.
a ton of questions about
Okay.
his setup and it just because he had this like astro video camera setup, he would get like live views and
Yeah.
nebulas and star clusters and stuff. I was like, wow, that is so cool. And people would just like gather around the screen and he would explain the various objects. And so, yeah, I'd ask him a lot of questions. I joined the forum for the equipment manufacturer, which was Cam at the time.
Right. Right.
And then I've kind of graduated up to DSLRs. I've really gotten into that. I've been using Canons for those. And
Oh, I liked you, by the way, because I have Canon.
yeah, and that's gotten me also into more like daytime photography too.
Okay.
But yeah, just that and just really diving in, like reading everything I can get my hands on for the equipment. So like when I get interested into something, I just start reading like all kinds of stuff about it.
Gotcha.
It was like all consuming for that first 6 months.
I can imagine. And Google it's a benefit. It's also a curse. You can go down some rabbit holes. I remember visiting the society's annual meeting, not annual meeting, the monthly meeting. I think it was last year out at Floydland Park. And I got out there early. I had no idea where I was going. I eventually found you guys, and you were just setting up your equipment. So I'd have to think that you took Rob's mentoring to heart because you had a pretty neat setup.
Yeah.
And by the time I left, everybody was huddled around you as you're showing them, you're pulling data down onto your screen.
Yeah.
So,
It was very much taken after him. That's what he would have been doing.
he'd be very proud of you. He'd be very proud of you.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about the Las Vegas Astronomical Society. What, besides the annual, keep wanting to say annual meeting, besides the monthly meeting, what else is going on with the society and how are you serving your current members or attracting new members?
So we are a 501c3 public charity. Our mission is basically science education, to get out there in the community, and our primary function is outreach. We do events at schools. One of our club officers, Francisco, he does a ton of events at schools, especially before the pandemic. He'd probably do like 50 a year. And in community service organizations like the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, and others. And of course, we do our big monthly public meetings, which are the ones I organize. We do those every month except December because of the holidays. So then we do at the planetarium, the CSN Planetarium on East Cheyenne, we do our monthly meeting, the non-stargazing meeting, where we meet in the planetarium dome, and we usually have a presenter or an astronomy video to talk about a subject. And before that, we talk a little club business and people can ask questions. And all these things are pretty much open to the public. We really don't have a lot of things where it's only members. We also do have an observatory site up at Mount Potosi that's in the Boy Scout camp up there.
Okay.
But they are right now, like at the Boy Scout camp, they're renting it out to Ford Motor Company, and they have it up for sale right now. So it's a little in flux. We can still access that, but we don't know the future that's going to be if they do find a buyer for that land and sell it.
Okay.
So yeah, we don't know exactly what's going to happen there, but club members that are dues paying members that join, they can request time up there, and we just have to give us some lead time to get permission to get them access up there.
Okay.
So that's one of the benefits of membership. We've been just getting a ton of interest. Like since the pandemic, we had to go online. We would get people come to visit events that weren't even in Las Vegas because we were suddenly online. We've had people join from other areas that aren't around here, and we just get people hearing about us through events, and they join up. Also, we do some events for some of our donors. Like every May, we do what is it called? International Astronomy Day. We do an event out at Sky Canyon Park. They're a big partner of ours. They donate quite a bit to the club, and we have a lot of fun out at that event. They really support us as far as like blocking out lights, and we typically want red light when we're there because it doesn't ruin your dark vision. So they cover a ton of the lights with red film.
Okay.
And really, it's a well-attended event. I've seen like 1,000, 1,500 people out there.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out next May. And I produce a podcast for the Boulder City Chamber of Commerce. Jill Lagan, who's the CEO, is the host. And last week, or actually this week, I should say, Tuesday, we published a podcast episode. Her name was Ashley. I can't remember her last name.
Ashley Pipkin?
Ashley Pipkin.
Yeah, I know Ashley.
All right.
She's a member, and she's my contact when we do events at Lake Mead.
Oh, fantastic. See, small world. This is like 2 degrees of separation here, Keith.
And she's been a monthly meeting presenter for us too.
Fantastic. Yeah, because we learned all about the efforts that the Park Service is helping, Ashley and her work, helping communities become better appreciators of dark sky and not overlighting the surrounding area. So, well, that's a small world. It didn't even dawn on me. And here I'm thinking, I'm going to share this with Keith. But
she's a friend of mine. Yeah, she does a lot of public education on light pollution and noise pollution, how it affects animals. And she works for the, Dark Skies? I'm going to get the name wrong. It's like a
consortium or something like that.
She does that. She started that Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative, but she also works for a portion of the National Park Service that is about light pollution and noise pollution. She goes around to all the Western region parks and measures it.
Very cool. Yes, she got a great job. She's got a great job. What's the small world?
Yeah, really.
So what is we're going to get into the James Webb, but I'm curious, you've been with the club for a while. Where is your go-to place if you really want to get some good dark sky and really kind of enjoy the surroundings, plus get some good viewing and imagery of the stars?
So
planets?
You already mentioned one. We go to Cathedral Gorge State Park twice a year, and that is really gorgeous skies out there. We do a spring and a fall event there.
Okay.
And then we also go to Death Valley. We try to do that twice a year. They've been having some construction that interferes with that event, so we're trying a new location this time. I believe that's scheduled for October. It's on our event calendar. But yeah, we usually do like October and February for Death Valley. And of course, they have gorgeous skies there. It's a very dark place. We've also done in the past, we've done around the Ash Meadows National Wildlife Refuge area. It's really beautiful out there. We haven't done that recently since the pandemic, but it's almost as dark as Death Valley out there. It's really nice.
I always thought Ash Meadows would be great for a camp out on the boardwalk.
That would be cool. They don't have an official campsite. There is camping like outside the park there, but it's really like rough type camping, like not really much in the way of facilities.
I don't know. Just bring your sleeping bag and put it on the boardwalk. I mean, I loved Ash Meadows when I went out there. I thought it was absolutely gorgeous. So let's talk about the James Webb.
Sure.
Why is it so special?
Oh, there's so many reasons why the James Webb is. So it is the next generation. It is the replacement, or rather it works with the Hubble Space Telescope. The Hubble primarily looks in visible light, what we see with our eyes. And the James Webb, it looks in the infrared. And that's really important for a reason that has to do with the universe is expanding. And what this does is it stretches out the wavelengths of light from things that are very far away. And so this is called redshift. And so things that are emitting visible light from 10 billion light years away, by the time the light reaches us, the wavelengths are stretched out into the infrared. So James Webb will allow us to look back to the very first galaxies and stars forming after the Big Bang. That's one of its primary missions, is to look further back in time than the Hubble could ever do. And it has a bigger mirror, it has a better observing location, it's looking in the right wavelengths compared to the Hubble. In a lot of ways, it complements the Hubble because it can look at the infrared, but it also has much sharper resolution. There's so many ways that it's better. It's just incredible.
Okay. Now, is this a case of, was the technology there and it was just not used, or the technology advanced so that the James Webb and its planning and construction could take advantage of new features,
Absolutely.
functionalities, things like that?
Absolutely advanced. And you got to remember the Hubble was designed like it may have launched what is it, like 25 years ago now, but that means it was designed like 15 years before that or something. So the technology it used is older than when it went up, and it's
Right.
the same with the Webb as well. But these sensors that are used in detectors these days look at the first digital cameras that came out
Mhm.
that had like 1 or 2 megapixels, and now you're buying cameras with 50 megapixels. Well, it's the same thing with scientific grade sensors that are used in the detector. These detectors that are in cameras are also used in scientific instruments. They're just a much higher grade version of detectors, and the technology of these has grown by leaps and bounds. It's hard to describe how much that's advanced. And then just the size of the mirror. I don't know if even like if they could have done it, like the Hubble has a 2.4 meter single mirror, one
Mhm.
mirror, and the Webb has a segmented mirror of hexagon segments, 18 segments that combine to form a 6.5 meter mirror. So it's 4 meters wider than the Hubble. That's a lot more light gathering capability.
Sure.
And it lets them gather so much more light than the Hubble for an equal amount of time. And then the Hubble orbits Earth every 96 minutes. So if it's trying to look at something over there, half the time it's behind Earth. The James Webb Space Telescope orbits 4 times out further than the moon. That's 1,000,000 miles.
Wow.
And it orbits at a special location called L2, the Lagrangian point 2. And that is a special point where Earth and the sun's gravity are in balance. There's 5 of these points. And L2 is the one that's like if you have the sun and you have Earth, L2 is the one that is 1,000,000 miles from Earth away from the sun. So it lets it be away from the Earth and the sun, and it's always facing away from the Earth and the sun. And 100% of the time that it's observing, it's able to be on target without anything in the way.
Oh, wow. That's pretty amazing. When the, how long had you been tracking, keeping aware of the telescope? And when did it suddenly become at your forefront of, wow, this is happening. This is cool. I'm just curious about that.
So yeah, for years you hear about it, and it's been delayed so many times. Like, oh, it's supposed to launch in like 2019 or 2020, and just kept moving the date. And then I remember in 2021, like they moved the date one more time, and it was like starting to get real. It was going to be launched on like Halloween, I think October 30th of 2021 or
Mhm.
October 31st. I think it was going to be actually on Halloween, and they had like one more delay. It was actually second to last delay. They delayed it into December. I think it was December 20th. And then when they shipped it through, they put it on a ship it launched island. It was a French colony. It was the European Space Agency that actually launched it for us. The location, it was a tropical island. It escapes the name of me, but they actually had to send it on a ship there. When it got on the ship and it was all created up, it's like that was like, okay, this is real. This thing's on the way to the launch site. They're preparing a rocket, and they actually did have a little accident while they were packaging it up in the rocket. They have to fold it up to fit in the payload area of the rocket.
Right.
And there was this spring-loaded device that released when it shouldn't have and jarred the telescope. And they had to retest things to make sure it didn't cause any damage. And fortunately, it didn't. But that delayed it like another 5 days, and the launch date was moved on to Christmas Day. So I'm sure that the families were happy about that. The families
Sure.
of the people launching it, they're like, oh, great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it finally did launch on Christmas Day, 2021. And a million things could have gone wrong on the way there. Like all these parts of the heat shield, like it has infrared is all of us are glowing in infrared right now. When you look at thermal cameras, that they're basically looking at infrared. When anything with a body temperature, a temperature of 98.6 glows in the infrared. If you're hotter, then you're going to glow red. Like think of the coil of an electric stove. As the coil is heating up, it's glowing in the infrared. But then when it gets hot enough, it glows in the red, then the yellow, then the white, and then the hotter is blue when you think of like a gas flame. You're basically looking at temperature when you see those colors. Same thing with stars, by the way. But so infrared, pretty much everything glows and has some temperature, and so it glows in infrared. And they don't want that to interfere with the instruments, the observations of the James Webb Space Telescope. So it is this very complicated heat shield that it faces towards Earth and the sun permanently. And the far side, the side facing Earth, is like 200 to 300 degrees hotter than, there it goes. There is like 200 to 300 degrees hotter than the side that is shielded. The side that the telescope is on is so much colder, and that is so important to these infrared observations to take noise out of the picture and get a very high signal to noise ratio.
Right.
And that heat shield was so complicated. It's like multi-layered. It had to unfold. All these parts had to unfold, and there's like so many little motors and servos that could have broke and not unfolded, and nothing went wrong. It just perfect.
Well, it's interesting. What's amazing, actually, is the amount of testing and retesting that had to go in for every little piece. And as you're putting it together, then you've got the unit tests, and then you've got some of the final tests. That's pretty amazing. I'm curious, did you and your colleagues, friends from the Astronomical Society have like a watch party when the first images started? Or you and your wife perhaps have a bottle of champagne?
Francesco, the fellow I was talking about that goes to the schools and stuff, he is actually a NASA Solar System Ambassador, which is a program you can apply to be like a volunteer event organizer for NASA. And in cooperation with the CSN Planetarium, College of Southern Nevada Planetarium, they did set up an event over there. It was for the day of the release. I couldn't make it over there middle of my work day, but they were over there for the release, and I did watch the live stream though.
That's fantastic. I mean, now the images that are coming across are just unbelievably amazing.
They really are. They're just so like my favorite one is that the deep image there, what they call a deep field. So if you ever Google the Hubble deep field or ultra deep field or extreme deep field, the Hubble Space Telescope looked at this little patch of sky that was very dark, like from the perspective of ground-based telescopes never could see any stars in there or galaxies, just a really dark little patch of sky. And it looked at it, created a composite image of about 1 million seconds of exposure time, which is over 11 days of exposure time. And that was the Hubble deep field. And then since then, they've done another 1 million seconds. So now it's up to 22 days. And I think that's the extreme deep field. And that's amazing, because like that dark area, what looked like a dark area, is completely filled with very distant galaxies. I think they go out to about 20 billion light years. And there's a few foreground stars from our Milky Way galaxy there. Anything that you see with those spikes on them those are called diffraction spikes. And those are from stars, like point-like sources. Those are from our local galaxy, but behind them are all these really distant galaxies. So the Hubble, that took weeks of observing time for the Hubble to put together, and it made this really iconic image of the early universe. Because the further you look back, the further away you look, the further back in time you're looking.
Right.
And so the deep field image that the James Webb Space Telescope released has detail in it that's better than those images, and it only took 12.5 hours of exposure time to generate it.
Wow.
And there's like things in there that they've never seen before, and that's less than a day, and it has details that are just incredible. And then on top of that, it has a spectrometer that is sensitive to infrared. So the Hubble has spectrometers for visible light, but not for the infrared. It doesn't reach very far in the infrared. And just real quick, what a spectrometer is, it breaks light. White light contains all colors of the rainbow. A spectrometer breaks it into its components like a prism, the colors of the rainbow, and it looks for things called either absorption lines or emission lines. And these are the fingerprint that chemicals leave behind when they're excited or when they absorb light or they get excited and they emit light. They have these series of specific frequencies, specific wavelengths they emit light at or absorb light at that are very indicative of things like hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, or even compounds like methane, water. And these are super important for tons of things, like all those distant galaxies. When you do spectroscopy like this, not only can you tell the chemical composition of the thing you're looking at, you can also you can look for red shift and blue shift. So you can know how fast it's rotating. Like the leading edge is going to be slightly blue shift, the side that's coming towards you, and the side that's going away from you is slightly red shifted, and they call that radial velocity. So it lets you see how fast things are rotating. You could look at the overall red shift of the whole object. That tells you how far away it is. So, I mean, for these really distant things to be able to observe the spectroscopy for them is amazing. And then even more importantly, when James Webb was being designed, exoplanets weren't really a thing, but exoplanets are planets that go around stars besides the sun. And we've only been looking for them for maybe 20 years, and we've already found 4,000 to 5,000. And we've only looked in a very small portion of the sky. Pretty much every star we've looked at has planets. They seem to be the norm. And one of the awesome things about James Webb Space Telescope is we can study the atmospheres of those planets.
Really? That's
cool. We can look for water and methane and carbon dioxide in those. And the way they do that, one of the ways they find planets is the transit method, they look for the planet to go across the host star. Right. And they look for a teeny dip in the light output from the star because the planet is blocking it.
Right.
But at the same time, the starlight is grazing the atmosphere of that planet, going around the very edge of the planet and going through the atmosphere. And so our spectroscope on that telescope can break down that light and look for absorption lines of chemicals in the atmosphere. It could compare the spectra of the starlight by itself versus what it sees at the edge of the planet. And then it knows what chemicals are in the atmosphere.
So what I think I'm hearing is humanity's age-old question: is there life out there? This is the start of the answer to that question.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's very cool.
Is the ability to look for habitable planets is going to be like one of the top priorities of this telescope.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. And the folks that are coming through the website or the Facebook group, are you seeing much more interest now because to your organization as a result of the telescope?
Oh yeah, there's a definite spike associated with that event. Yeah.
Okay. Now everybody's going to go and purchase a telescope, which brings back another question: is what advice would you give to somebody? Okay, see all these pictures. I mean, yeah, you can go off and spend a lot of money, but what would be your advice to someone now because of this great telescope and these images? I want to learn more about this. What advice would you give for that novice or that parent that wants to get their kid started in astronomy?
So yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. Do not go out and buy a department store telescope or some special you saw on Amazon. Come out to one of our monthly events, look through our telescopes, ask questions, find out what you like, find out there's various optical designs of telescope, and there's pros and cons to each of them. There's no perfect telescope that's great for everything. Mm-hmm. So find out what the different types of viewing are, find out what you're interested in, and then what the pros and cons of the designs are. And so we can figure out what telescope is right for you. Mm-hmm. As far as like also just a general guideline, if you wanted to get like a present or something, generally about the cheapest telescope that you can get that's worthwhile before the pandemic was $200. Now it's a little higher. The prices have gone up, unfortunately, since the pandemic. But yeah, it's usually going to be like a 4.5-inch to 5-inch tabletop telescope, which is the kind of like on a little lazy Susan,
Right.
which is what we call a Dobsonian telescope. It's a Newtonian optical design on a Dobsonian mount, is what it's called, or a Dob for short.
Right.
And that's usually the minimum we recommend are these tabletop ones. If you're spending like $100 or $150, the odds are there's going to be a very high frustration factor associated with some key design flaw in that telescope. And it usually frustrates people out of the hobby. We have so many of those that get donated to us, or we really don't have much use for them because they're not good. It's usually, if you only have $100 to spend, I would recommend getting some 7x50 or 10x50 astronomical binoculars, like go to Orion Telescopes and get their Scenics $99 binoculars. I would recommend those before spending $100 on the telescope.
I love it. There was a man at the Floyd Land Park when I attended the monthly event last year, and actually he had a pair of binoculars. I thought, okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you can do a lot of cool stuff with binoculars. Telescopes are very zoomed in. Like a lot of times people ask us about meteor showers, like, do you bring out your telescopes for meteor showers? It's like, you don't use a telescope for meteor showers. It's way too zoomed in. So like if you were to hold your thumb out at arm's length and put it up against the sky, you're covering approximately 1 degree of sky.
Right.
Most regular sized telescopes will give you a field of view of about 1 degree or possibly less. And that's just a teeny fraction of the sky. It's just too magnified to look at things that zoom across the sky in a second.
Right.
And it's also too magnified to look at very wide things like the Andromeda galaxy. The closest spiral galaxy to us is actually like 6 full moons across, if you could see it in a truly dark place, lit up end to end. And something like binoculars, they give you about a good one gives you about 7 degrees field of view. And that's what you want for things like big star clusters or something like the Andromeda galaxy. You would either get a very wide field telescope for that, or your typical main telescope is going to be too zoomed in for objects like that. So binoculars are a nice thing to have too.
Sure. You mentioned the Andromeda galaxy and then also that image of the dark sky area that the Hubble captured and now the James Webb. The one shot that really kind of blows my mind is the fact there are so many other galaxies out there. And that really tells me how insignificant we truly are, because imagine what's beyond them.
Yeah. It's the current estimate is within the observable universe, which is not the whole universe. It's just the area of the universe where there's been enough time for the light from those objects to reach us. Just in the observable universe, they estimate there's about 2 trillion galaxies. And a galaxy like the Milky Way, a spiral galaxy like us, holds about 400 billion stars. I've seen estimates for the Andromeda galaxy of up to 1 trillion stars. So it's just mind-boggling how many stars must be out there. And then if you think most stars have planets, multiple planets, there's even a mind-numbing number of planets out there.
Yeah. It makes me wish we were living in the age of Star Trek, but it is what it is. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. I mean, what really comes across, it's crystal clear to me, Keith, is your passion for this hobby. Does your wife still enjoy it with you, or she says, honey, go off and...
Sometimes, I mean, she's been to a lot of events. And so sometimes there's like the fatigue, like, oh yeah, I've seen that before. But of course, if it's something novel, like an eclipse or a comet or something, yeah, she enjoys it too. She's come to a lot of these events. Her favorite place was Death Valley. She likes to go to those.
I like Death Valley. I would love to do the winter one, because then just put up a tent and... So I'm curious then, definitely want to head out to the Death Valley, because I love it out there, and I would love to be able just to kind of camp out there. There's a campground right above Furnace Creek that is wonderful. Just throw up a tent. There's facilities there, and it's first come, first serve. And it's like, that's on my to-do list later on in the year.
Oh, yeah.
Before we head out, Keith, there's a couple of segments we have to the podcast. One of those is called the aha moment. And what we like about the aha moment is an opportunity for our guests to kind of look back and reflect on, could be their career, their interests, their passions. And I'm curious, what's your aha moment? I mean, as a member of the Las Vegas Astronomical Society, you've been in this hobby for 12 years now or 10 years now,
Almost
and
9.
you're part of the organization. Yeah. And now you've got this wonderful event, James Webb. So what would be your aha moment?
My aha moment would be like, as far as what got me into actually doing astronomy, was that annular eclipse, like seeing the society out there. I was like blown away. I was like, wow. And then my older brother getting me that telescope for birthday, that first beginner's telescope. And those two things really like turbocharged me to get involved. Yeah.
Okay. Now, is your brother ever come around and join you and partake in the hobby with you?
Both my brothers haven't on occasion. My older brother has a telescope himself, and well, even my younger brother has a little one as well. But yeah, they've come out to events here and there, and they're interested.
Fantastic.
And we've done
Fantastic.
stuff over like at their houses or at my house and stuff.
Very good. Our last segment is called the Insight to Go. And we've kind of alluded to a little bit of this during our conversation today, but any final insight, advice, maybe there's a book or a quote that you would like to share with our listeners about this passion of astronomy and just the learning and the opportunities that come with it?
I would say there's nothing like getting out and actually doing it. Like there's nothing like being out under the sky in a dark place and seeing what's truly out there and trying to understand our place in this universe. And if you want to do that, if you're in Las Vegas, come out to one of our events. We do them monthly. Our next one is October 20th at Spring Mountain Ranch State Park. If you're not in Las Vegas, there's astronomical societies all over the country, and they all have outreach events. So Google them, take a look at their event calendar, get out there or just go out there and camp at a state park or a national park and bring some binoculars, bring a little telescope. It's gorgeous when you get out there. And these days, nobody can look up and see the Milky Way. Like it used to be at night, you could just look up in cities and see the Milky Way overhead. Nowadays, you have to drive hours and hours out of cities to even see it.
Right, right. Next week, I by the way, I love on the website, which you're going to share the URL in a second. You have the moon
Phases.
There's a word for it. Thank you. The moon phases. And next week I will be in Flagstaff, which is higher elevation, some dark sky. So I'm hoping to do some astrophotography out there.
Sounds very nice.
So before we do head out, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and the Astronomical Society, where are the best places for them to go?
So our website is lvastronomy.org, as in Las Vegas Astronomy.org, or we're on Facebook. Our group is the Las Vegas Astronomical Society. We're pretty active there.
Fantastic. Well, we'll provide the backlinks to the website, lvastronomy.org, as well as to link to the Facebook page. Keith, it's great to catch up with you. And again, thank you for wearing the NASA shirt for NASA, James Webb, and I am looking forward to joining you out at Spring Mountain State Park next month. And awesome. Folks, they're going to enjoy it if they can get out there and just have some fun and meet new people and look at the great telescope and huddle around you and all those wonderful images that you're capturing. So, yeah, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Howard, for letting us get the word out.
All right. Listen, stay in the line. We're going to do a quick close, and then you and I can have a final chat. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right, folks, we have just been chatting with Keith Caceres. He's the event organizer, former president at the Las Vegas Astronomical Society, and really so grateful that Keith was able to spend some time today with us. I know he's got his, many of us have our JOBs, but this is a special time for anybody that's into the science and pleasure of gazing out at the stars and really to appreciate the technology that is now available in the James Webb Space Telescope, and really what it took to get this telescope out into space and orbit, and also to really realize how far we've come in the technology and the crystal clarity of some of these images, and really the potential of the data that we're going to be getting from these images, and also the new questions we're going to ask as a result. And we kind of compared and contrast the James Webb with the Hubble, and really appreciate Keith presenting with us the differences and the nuances between these devices. And he also gave the aspiring astronomer out there, especially mom, dad, aunt and uncle, grandparents, if you want to get Johnny or Jane a telescope, first go out and visit a local astronomy society and see what the equipment is out there. Because what you want to do, if you're going to make an investment, you want to make sure that investment lasts. You don't want to have it end up in a closet somewhere. But really appreciate Keith kind of laying out the groundwork for what that type of experience will be. And what a better way than to go out in your local state park, national park, and just enjoy the night sky with fellow astronomy enthusiasts. So wherever you are, they're out there, especially here in Las Vegas. We have the Las Vegas Astronomical Society, and we have their monthly meetings here as well. And so again, do go out and visit their website, lvastronomy.org, and also on Facebook. They have their groups there as well. We'll provide the backlinks to both. As for us, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. We hope you're enjoying the images that you're seeing on the internet of the photos from the James Webb. Let us know what you thought of today's episode with Keith. And you can find us on the outdooradventureseries.com. You can enroll so you get notifications of those episodes. You can also leave comments about the episode as well. We are also on Facebook and LinkedIn, the Outdoor Adventure Series pages, and we are on all of the major podcast directories. So wherever you listen to your podcast, just search for Outdoor Adventure Series and you will find us. Please like it, comment, share it, and let us know what you think, okay? Until then, we hope you have a fantastic day or weekend wherever you are. Hope you're staying cool because it's warm almost everywhere here in the U.S. and around the globe. Go have a great day. Take care of yourselves, your family, and we will see you on a future episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care now.